Welcome along to today's class. As ever, anyone tuning in a little bit later in the day, maybe just skip ahead a couple of minutes and we will be straight into the workout. Just tuning in a couple of minutes early, just testing out the sound, making sure everything's okay. And on the stream itself, something I'd always say, should the stream go down for any reason, sometimes the technology will let us down, I will simply start up a new stream live on YouTube. So if anything does go wrong with the stream, we will set up with a new stream. So you're very welcome along today's class. Siel, Bleu Ireland, in collaboration with the Irish Cancer Society, delivering our Staying Well While Staying Home series. My name is Shane, and I've delivered a lot of these workouts to you over the last couple of months. Great to be here again. A little bit of sunshine pouring in on us, which is nice. So the format of the class, I will lead the movements from a standing position, perform any of the movements in a seated position. The movement is a mix of aerobic and strength work, so building up, strengthening our muscles, keeping our bones strong, and also building up that little bit of physical fitness in our body, building up endurance. So we're going to get ourselves moving and working hard. So things we want to have for this session, if we have a couple of weights. If you don't have weight, you can use tins, bottles, and for some of the movements you may not want to use weight, and that's fine. Having a bottle of water, definitely important, and I would always recommend I have a window open, so just having a little bit of ventilation, always important too. And finally, a good firm chair, so something that is reliable and a solid base that I can use. So we'll begin in maybe just a minute or two. As I said, really it's just to come on a couple of minutes early, just to make sure that my sound as everything is okay, and I can see it is there. For all of the movements, what I would say is work at your own comfort. We want to feel a challenge. So during this workout, I want you to feel that you're within your body. Yes, I feel active. I'm getting a challenge, but at no point would you be completely breathless or pumping sweat, for example. So it's not pushing to a stage where things are painful or uncomfortable. If a movement causes pain, we would immediately just stop that exercise, not persisting or pushing through. And if something feels really difficult and sore or uncomfortable, again, we want to strip that back. So feeling a challenge, working hard, but without experiencing any pain or feeling really uncomfortable. Okay, so I think we are good to go, and we will just get into the session. So I'm going to lead this warm-up from a standing position, just to adapt and perform anything from a seated position that you wish to do. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my shoulders very lightly as we start this session. So let's begin. Bringing the shoulders up and down, and very welcome along to anyone just tuning in. And this is Siel, Bleu Ireland in collaboration with the Irish Cancer Society, our Staying Well While Staying Home series. So just beginning our warm-up, lightly bringing the shoulders up and down, just getting a little bit of movement. And as I said to the guys at the start, anyone, if the stream should go down, it can sometimes let us down in the middle of a session. If it were to suddenly stop, we will just start a new stream right here on YouTube through our page. Next, I'm just going to break it down. Lift right shoulder, then lift left shoulder, one at a time. Just separate the action, one shoulder up at a time. And then bringing hands together. I'm just going to lightly turn to the right and then lightly turn to the left. So the purpose of our warm-up is just gently bringing that heart rate up, loosening our body out, and just preparing for some of the main work ahead. So we don't want to go in suddenly to movements like squats and weighted movements. We want to gradually build up, tune our body into that position. Okay. And next, bringing hands up to about chest height. A little bit of coordination here. I want to push one arm in front, pull the opposite arm back. So I might just show a couple from the side. One arm push forward, one arm pull back. So just a little bit of coordination here. Gradually building up, starting off with kind of lighter movements, and then we will build up slowly in intensity. One arm pressing out in front at a time. Just nice and slowly building up here. One arm at a time, straight in front. Just pushing out from chest. Okay, from there, what I want to do is just take a small step forward. My two arms are going to be out in front, and I want to pull back. So I will lightly step in front, pulling or rowing into my tummy. And you'll notice the angle I'm at. I'm pulling low into my stomach rather than high into my chest. So I'm going to think about connecting with the back of my body as I perform this action, showing a couple from the side how that might look. Just simply rowing and becoming a little bit more dynamic with the movement now by adding this small step as well. So just lightly stepping in front and then rowing, pulling back into your stomach. And then return. What I'm going to do is just take it into a march. We're just building up, warming up. So I'm just going to start adding some marching in here as well. Next, what I want to do is lightly step in front again and just begin lifting my two arms out in front. So how that looks, just simply stepping and lightly raising the arms in front. Some of the movements we practice here within our warm-up will very closely relate to some of the weighted movements we'll do. So I'm kind of thinking to myself, is this a movement pattern that feels okay? If I was holding two weights in my hands, does this movement feel comfortable? Or does it feel a little bit tight, stiff, or sore? So you're just kind of tuning in, just getting a feel for what might be comfortable or what might not be. So we're just lightly stepping forward, raising those arms up. Okay. And then again, just to return back in, bringing it back to a march. What I will do again is just to bring those hands together as I perform this march movement. Just going to lightly bring up to my left shoulder and then over to my right shoulder. So as I said, we're getting a little bit more dynamic with the movements now. A little bit more challenging, very slowly building up. Hands across to opposite shoulder. Keeping the two hands together and just lightly marching throughout here. Next, what I want to do, and I can hold my chair here if I like, lightly curl one leg at a time behind. So I think bum kicks here, as if I was trying to kick heel towards bum. I'm going to use my chair if I need for a little bit of support, or it might not be needed, but just keep the movement nice and light. Not too harsh with that pullback, just nice and light, curling one leg back at a time, lightly kicking behind, bringing that heel behind towards my bum. So just lightly kicking behind, gently going from side to side. And then next from here, I'm just going to bring my stance back in, chair if I want, big lift, big lift. So less about speed and more about a little bit of height in the movement now. Just opening up, switching on from the hips, getting a nice big lift through each knee. And keeping that body nice and strong in this position. Just lifting up. And then again, I just want to return, nice and light, kicking behind. Again, using your chair for support if needed. And just lightly kicking behind. Just continuing on. Hopefully at this point, nothing too difficult, but we are warming up, feeling now that we're more closer to where we want to be in terms of starting the session now and getting really active and moving. Return my stance back in, right knee up, left knee up. Nice big lift. And again, using that chair for support if needed. So a little bit slower with this action, but getting a nice big lift. What I will do next, and again, just want to take a little step to the sides, kind of tying in with some of the work we'll do very shortly, just getting a little feel for stepping side to side, little weight shift in each direction, over to the right, over to the left. And there's one final phase in the warm-up which we will do, which will be to get the ankles just to make sure they're opened up and moving. And once more, okay? I'm going to use my wall as a bit of support here. And what I want to do is soften my knees, so I don't want to be too tight and rigid. Just soften the stance, place my right heel out, and then tap the toes. So I'm going to go heel, toes, toes, and I'll just continue on like that, swapping between the two positions of heel and then the toes. Just transitioning heel, toes, toes. And I'm using my wall for support, keeping that left leg, the knee nice and soft, never too rigid. Really nice way, opening up the ankles. I've been trying this with a couple of groups recently. Instead of ankle circles, if you find a full rotation a little bit uncomfortable, it's be a nice little addition or different way to try a little bit of movement. Swap. Left heel out, point the toes, heel, toes, toes. Continuing on like that. Just lightly swapping between the two positions, heel, toes. Right leg, the knee is nice and soft. And I'm using my wall for a bit of support here. And down. Perfect. Okay. So I want to bring us straight into our kind of aerobic block of work. I always say equate this to a brisk walk, being on a bike, a treadmill, where you feel a little bit of intensity. That doesn't mean completely breathless, pumping sweat, but it does mean that you feel you're active. If I was to ask you, you feel, yeah, I feel I'm moving, I'm active here. So I'm going to lead us with 3 movements, all of which can be adapted and performed in a seated position if you prefer. So whatever way is best for you. So the first action I will begin with is a front raise and knee lift. So how that looks simply means lifting my right arm and knee. Seated position, exactly the same. And while standing, you can use your chair for support if needed. If not, you just continue on. So what this means is this is a one-sided movement. We've been adding little elements of balance, coordination in here, but in a controlled way. So I must stay strong through the left side of my body. It's keeping me in a steady position. And I'm lifting my right arm and knee. If I show a couple from the side, you'll notice I'm keeping a nice straight back. I'm never bending or arching this position. So a nice, strong, upright position. Again, it might look very simple to begin, but becomes a little bit more challenging as we go. Start cautious with the movements, gradually build them up. Okay, rest. So we're going to switch it up. We can go from the opposite side. So now it will be movement of left arm, left leg in 2, 1, and begin. So again, start light, start cautious. So you can use your chair for support. If you're in a seated position, the movement is exactly the same. Raising the arm, lifting the knee. That arm never above about 90 degrees here. Just think in line with your shoulder. Maybe not even quite lifting that high. That's absolutely fine. Bringing my knee up again to a height that's comfortable. Never lifting to a point where you feel unbalanced or uncomfortable. So if you're wobbling, uncomfortable here, control the position, slow it down. Take your chair for support if needed. Breathing all the time, never holding your breath. And just continuing on, lifting the knee, raising the arm, working through that one side for movement, working through the opposite side for balance, and pause. Third and final movement, I want to move my chair out of the way. But again, this can be performed seated, just using the upper portion of the movement. What I want to do in standing, I want to step to the right and bring my arm over. Step to the left, bring the arm over. So continuing like this. I have come across where sometimes we find overhead movements difficult. If that is the case, I want you to press the arm across. So push the arm across if you find that overhead position isn't good. So I continue and return back to the overhead. If you are in a seated position, I would focus on that upper limb movement. So just bringing the arm over or across, one at a time, and not needing to worry about adding a step in, but you can if you wish. Last couple, and rest, okay? They are your 3 movements. We will repeat them all a second and then a third round. So, again, my chair is here if I want. Right arm, right leg, let's begin. So again, start cautious on the first couple of reps. Make sure you feel strong and balanced. And then we continue on at a nice moderate pace. So I'm working at an intensity that I feel I'm active. I can definitely sense I'm working. Not easy, but I'm in control. I'm not in any pain. I can still talk. I'm not pumping sweat. So that's a good indication that yes, I'm working hard, but not in any way really uncomfortable here. Seated position, the movement is the same. And from our standing, we can use our support here if we want. And rest. We switch. We just have a couple of seconds between each movement, just to set up to move your chair if you need. Left arm, left leg for movement in 2, 1, and begin. Again, first repetition or 2, I'll just start cautiously. And now I'll continue at a nice moderate pace. So trying to go at a pace that you can sustain, not so fast that, after a couple of seconds you feel just really tired from it, but enough that you can sustain the movement for around 50 seconds. Chair here if I wanted for balance. Seated position. I'm looking for that same motion. Raise the arm, raise the knee. Last couple of seconds here. Any point you feel uncomfortable, very breathless, I want you to just rest, slow the pace down. Okay. Back to our half jacks. Again, just in case you're a little unclear from the seated position, you can just mimic the movement, pushing overhead or across. Okay. And I find it would be easier maybe just to focus on the upper portion. From standing, step and lift over. Don't want to be too harsh with the movement, just keeping it nice and light. Step to the side, lightly raise the arm overhead. If that isn't comfortable, I want you to press lightly across the body. Again, I'm not going to think about punching here. I'm just going to think about keeping it nice and light. We think of breaking the movement down per side, right, then left. One side is always moving. And that's the pattern with all of these movements, one-sided movement. Little element of balance, coordination throughout. And return, okay? Bringing it back in, third, final round. I have my chair back again. So, beginning, right arm, right leg in terms of motion again. Let's begin. Right arm, right leg. Chair for balance if needed. Seated position, that same action. A couple of reps from the side. Keeping a nice, strong upper body position. Never arching that back and not kind of folding in either. So, keeping it strong. Slow the pace down if needed. If it feels really easy, we might go with a little bit more intensity. Again, everyone is individual, everyone's different. It's less about matching what you see on the screen and more about setting a pace that's right for you. We're feeling a challenge, feeling that we're working hard. And switch, okay? I'm going to move my chair. It's just there purely as support in case I felt a little bit unbalanced. Left arm, left leg in terms of motion. Let's begin. Chair here, seated position, that same action. Raising the arm, lifting the knee. Breathing throughout, never holding your breath through a motion, through a movement. Making sure you feel strong, balanced in this position. Last couple of seconds. Felt like a longer one, sometimes it does, but they are all on the clock. And rest. Again, seated position. Again, I would just focus on the upper portion, whether that's overhead or pushing across. Standing position, my arms are ready. Step to the side and lightly raise. Again, if you're not comfortable with this overhead motion, this kind of maybe feels a bit uncomfortable. Again, I'm just going to lightly push across the body instead. So adapt and make this work for you. Everyone is different. Main thing is I'm active, I'm moving, whether standing or seated. We're active, we're moving, we're working that body here hard, giving ourselves a good challenge, but still in control. In no way uncomfortable or in any kind of pain. Last couple of seconds. And rest, okay? Take a rest, take a drink of water, take a little bit of a breather here. That's your first round of movement done. That's our aerobic work. Really the purpose is just to get you moving there, working at a nice brisk pace. And you can hear as I talk that a little bit out of puff in terms of my breath. So a little bit of challenge, exertion, that I could feel my body was active, moving, really working the heart, working the lungs, giving our body that challenge. Now we will more specifically move into some weighted work. But again, within that, we will try and keep our body quite active and moving as well. So the first movement will be a wall march. So if you don't have a wall, you can use your chair instead, just alongside you. And we can also work this in a seated position. So I'm going to demonstrate. The clock isn't going on yet. I want you to just continue to rest as I maybe just demonstrate this first movement. So how it will look, I will place my hands against the wall. I'm going to think roughly in line with my shoulders here. So not up here, not really wide, not really low, roughly shoulder height. I place my hands against the wall. I stand back a little bit, keeping my body straight. I will lift my knees at a nice intensity. So lifting my knees up, that will be the action. I'm in a strong, secure position against the wall that I can work with a little bit of intensity. Don't have a wall nearby or something appropriate. Use your chair and go again with a nice little bit of intensity, a big lift of the knees. Seated position. Again, nothing really changes, just that you might take a bit of support from your chair. Nice and upright. And again, we will go with a little bit of intensity as we lift up. But make sure you feel comfortable when in that seated position regarding your back. So take a bit of support if needed. Okay, so clock is going to go on. We'll begin this movement. I'll just set it up once more. So I just make sure I've actually the time set correctly, which I didn't. Okay, now we are good to go. And we just have 20 seconds. Okay, so let's begin in about 10 seconds. So again, hands about shoulder width apart. I'm going to place my hands against the wall and I'm going to walk back a little bit and just making sure I feel comfortable. Straight, nice and upright. Right knee, left knee. And then I will continue at a nice intensity. I'm strong, I'm secure against the wall. And this maybe allows me to go with a little bit more intensity than I otherwise would, because I know I'm in a good, strong, secure position here. So again, you can use your chair if there's no suitable wall nearby. And if you're in a seated position, again, we can go for that action, bringing our knees up, alternate one at a time. In a nice, strong position, never rounding that back, so never caving in. I'm staying nice and upright. Again, by being against the wall, it lets me go with a nice intensity because I know I'm in a nice, strong, secure position. Last couple of seconds here, bringing those knees up. And this will really work our hips. So this action of lifting your knee in front, really good for those hips. And return, okay? About 20 seconds rest. Take a drink. Grab a little rest if you need. Arm curl. Standing or seated, the execution of the movement will be the same. How we'll do it today, we'll bring our elbows roughly by my sides. Palms of the hands are in front, holding my 2 weights. And I want to curl up and then directly back down. I'm just going to go, we've tried loads of different variations with the arm curl. I'm just going to go very straightforward, up, down today. What I would say is I'm trying to keep my angle straight, so I'm not trying to cave in, which sometimes happens, or push it really wide. Think about keeping the angle straight. That's why I'm going to start with this open position. Palms of the hands faced in front, and I want you to curl in a nice straight line up and down towards your shoulders. So some of the movements, like the last one, very dynamic, very active. And some a little bit of a steadier position like this, just curling up. Thinking about my arms. If in standing, you're keeping your upper body nice and straight. So we never arch and we're never bending either. We're just keeping a nice strong position. All the work through my arms. And down. I will drop one weight for this next movement. I'm just going to pause the clock briefly that I have sufficient time just to explain the movement. A couple of ways we can do this. Combination, upright row with our squat or sit stand. How that looks. 2 hands will be on the weight. You can do this without weight if you prefer. Feet, maybe just a little bit wider than hip width. Knees nice and soft. Chest out. I will lightly squat or sit fully to the chair. Set my position nice and tall again. And then lift to about chest height. So I'll demo once more. Lightly squat or sit. Raise up. If you want to do this without weight, just squat or sit to stand, that's fine. And separately from a seated position, you might like to just go for that rowing. Raising up to about chest height. Keeping that little bit of width. So let's begin. I'll set that up once more. 2 hands on the waist, feet a little bit wider than hip width, just giving me a little bit of space. Chest out, knees soft. Squat down, stand up, and lift the weight. Just break it down, not doing it all at once. Again, you might be comfortable with this as a squat, i.e. the chair isn't needed, or you might need to fully sit down as I demonstrate here. Whichever version of this is needed or works best for you. Again, from that seated position, we can just focus on raising the weight up. Couple of points. My knees staying in line with my toes. They're not caving in. My hips, they're going down and back and then forward as I stand. And then I'm raising the weight to about chest height. I don't want to go any higher than my chest. And I'll think about those elbows lifting up. Break it down, not trying to do it all together in the one action. Separate those parts. Squat or sit, stand up, pushing heels to the ground, and then lift the weight. Strong, powerful movements, no need to rush. Perfect. 3 movements done. And what we have next is our heel raises, another version today. So how I'm going to do this, I'm going to turn my back to the camera briefly for this one. What I want you to do is point your toes slightly outwards. So instead of directly ahead, my toes are pointed diagonal at a slight angle. And you'll notice my heels are a little bit narrower. From that position, I will begin lifting my heels up. You can use that same setup in your seated position. Toes slightly pointed out, heels slightly narrower. Lifting from a slightly different angle, just changing it up a little bit of variety. Coming at the calf, the back and lower leg from a slightly different angle might feel a slightly different challenge. If you don't like this movement or setup, you could stick for a more regular stance with your toes face directly ahead in front of you. and just lifting your heels up. Either version, keep your body straight, not allowing my hips to rock forward and back. I'll just think of a nice purposeful lift every time. Heels up, back down. Heels up, back down. So I'm getting right up onto the toes of my feet every time. I'll get one more. And back down. Okay, so that's just a nice way. It's just that you're not doing the same action every time. It's a different way. You might feel that a little bit differently simply by changing your foot position. Just going to, again, just don't want to rush any of them. I'm going to do a very active front raise where I'll show what I mean. I'm going to step and raise, and then on the opposite side, and then return. If you don't like that, you can stick with a regular, just maintain your stance. And of course, in the seated position, you can do it exactly the same. You can straighten the arms, raise in front. But let's begin with our standing and more active version. Okay. So what I want to do is my arms are straight, palms down. I'll step forward with my right leg, raise the weight. Step forward with left, raise the weight. And then simply return back in. Simply return back in. So think one side lifts, steps and lift, and then on the opposite. And then return back. You'll notice I start a little bit cautiously here, just making sure I feel balanced and strong with the position. I'm just raising the weights in front, but guided by a forward step each time. So really active movement. Maybe a couple from the side. Stepping forward, raising the weight. Again, I'm not going to rush this one. Very active movement. Just raising your weight in front and stepping into the movement each time. Think right leg steps, so my right arm raises, and then my left side follows through. And return. Rest, okay? They are your 5 movements. Have a little assessment with yourself. Was there anything there you didn't like? Anything you would change? Just to make that change. We don't want you to persist with something that won't feel good, or maybe something you didn't like there. Maybe you want to take weight out of the movement. Maybe you want to perform a seated version. So make those changes. If everything felt okay, let's continue on into our second round. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds, just take another drink. And we will move straight back into our wall push-up. Again, we can use our chair, or you can perform this in a seated position, but I will lead from standing. So, hands about shoulder width, that's my position. Placed firmly against the wall. Stand back, and let's begin. Alternate, right knee up, left knee up. I'm in a nice, strong upper body position. I'm not arching through that back, or I'm not bending down. Think I'm in a strong, supported position, so I can perform this action with a little bit of intensity. Lifting each knee up, a strong, powerful lift of the knee each time. Working your hip on each side. Right knee, left knee. Ensure we're not holding that breath, always breathing throughout the movement. You can perform it against your wall, you can perform it using chair support or from a seated position. But I would, if you're not using your wall, use the support of your chair. We want to be able to go with a little bit of intensity. So giving our body some support that we're strong and stable as we perform the movement. And rest. 2 weights will take up our arm curl. Standing seated, the instruction is the same here. Okay, just to sit comfortably in your chair or stand. Palms of my hands in front, grasping the weight. Elbows lightly in by my side here. And begin curling up and down in a nice straight line. I'm curling up towards shoulders and then fully extending back down. So making sure there is a good, nice, big range of movement here. that we're not somewhere halfway between, trying to fully curl up and then extend back down. So there's a nice range through the movement. My upper body is strong. You'll notice I never want to arch, which can happen if we're finding the weight a little bit tough. And if you think that's happening, we might like to take a seated position. Keeping it strong, all the work through my arms. And I'm working in a nice straight line up towards shoulder every time. So the weights aren't merging in. I'm just keeping it nice, straight, up, down line every time. Last couple of seconds. And one more. Okay. Drop one weight. Again, your versions here, you can do squat or sit to stand. You can do this with or without weight. Seated position, you can just focus on the upper portion of the movement. Feet a little bit wider than hip width. Knees soft. 2 hands on the waist. Chest out. Squat down or sit. Stand up. Raise the weight. And continue on. Again, that chair, you can keep it behind if you like. I'm just lightly tapping it. Just very slight contact. I'm not fully sitting into the position. If you want, you can fully sit down. But even if you are very competent, it can be no harm just to keep it behind you, just to make sure it's giving you that little bit of guidance. That allows me to know I'm sitting down and back into the movement, as opposed to maybe bending my back forward, which we don't want. I keep my knees soft. They're in line with my toes. My hips down and back, and then forward as I stand. I'm going to think about pressing my heels into the ground, generating lots of power through my legs. Once I've stood, I raise the weight to about chest height, no higher. Elbows will raise with the movement. And rest. Swap. Our next movement. Heel raises. Again, I will turn my back for this movement. What I want to do, again, I have my chair or seated position. Flare the toes out. My toes are pointed outward, slightly diagonal. Heels slightly narrower. And I begin lifting the heels up from this position. So again, we're just altering our support base here, just giving us a different kind of a challenge. Toes are flared out, heels a little bit narrower. Body stays straight, bringing your heels up. Not to allow yourself to kind of bounce up and down. Try and have a little bit of separation. Good purposeful lift every time, right up onto the toes of your feet. And those heels coming right up. Feeling the back of my lower legs, not allowing my hips to sway forward and back. The only movement is up and back to the floor. I have that chair for support here. Might start easy and start to get a little bit tougher this one as we go along. Again, just bringing those heels up. And back, okay? Moving into our next movement. Front raise. Do this from your seated position, from a purely stationary position, or as I have done, turning it into a very active movement. Arms straight, hands down. How it looks, step forward with right leg and raise, and then follow through with left, and just lightly return it back. You can switch the side from which you lead, but I just want to keep it kind of straightforward and not confuse us or anything. So I'm just going to lead with my right again. But you can alternate and lead from the opposite side. Again, stepping forward with my right leg, raise the arm, follow through with the left, and then lightly step back. Just ensure we don't go too fast here. Keep it under check. Just going at a nice, smooth, comfortable pace here. No need to rush. Lifting of the weight, never going above shoulder height. We may not even quite reach that shoulder alignment, and that's fine. Just keeping your arms straight, making sure you feel strong with the movement. Breathing, never holding that breath. And back. Drop the weights down, take a rest again. That's 2 rounds finished. So we'll take a drink of water. We have 1/3 final round of movement. Again, ask yourself, is this feeling easy? In which case you might push with a little bit more intensity this 3rd final round. Finding it very hard, we might slow some of the movements down. You could even maybe take weight out of 1 or 2 of the movements if you need it. But otherwise, we'll go again. Working hard, giving ourselves a challenge, never in any way in pain or discomfort here. So let's go again. I'm going to step the clock up very shortly. Again, I'm going to approach the wall. You can use your chair or fully sit down if needed. Hands about shoulder width. So let's begin in about 10 seconds. Hands about shoulder width apart here. Let's place them in against the wall. Body stays nice and straight, and let's begin. Right knee, left knee. Nice big drive every time. Keeping your upper body strong, not bending into the position. I can perform this at a nice intensity where I feel I'm getting a challenge. Working those hips, bringing the knees up. A nice, strong, powerful lift. Nice and supported and secure against the wall. Work at an intensity that's right for you, not too hard. Feels uncomfortable, but not so easy that you don't feel that you're working much through it. So a pace that I can sustain for this block of time. Breathing all the time. Last couple of seconds. And rest. Okay. Swapping to our weighted movement next. Arm curl. Do a couple of seconds rest. So no need to rush. Palms of the hands forward. Seated, standing. Instruction of the movement is the same. Elbows lightly by my side. And I begin. Curling the weights up. Lowering back down. Nice straight line. Curling up and down. Towards those shoulders. Slowly back down. And I'm just thinking about keeping the angle nice and straight here. Keeping all the tension through my arms. I'm just going with a nice control. Curl up and squeeze. And a little bit slower on the way down. In that nice range every time. All the way up. Fully extend back down. Particularly as I tire, we might notice that we start to put some movement in. So I'll always just keep repeating that message of keeping that body straight. Making the arms do as much of the work as we can here. And exhale, breathe out as I curl up. Refuel, taking air in as I lower the weights down. Last couple of seconds. And rest down. Okay, just pause for a second, don't want to rush. Again, we'll have our squat. Just bear in mind, maybe this 3rd round, maybe it could be a simple change, like taking the weight out, maybe fully sitting instead of squatting. So squat or sit to stand, with or without the weight. Seated position, I would just focus on that motion of raising up the chest. So let's begin in a couple of seconds here. Set up again, feet. Definitely, I like to go a little bit wider, so a little wider than hip width. I keep my knees nice and soft. Chest out. 2 hands on the weight, and I begin. I lightly squat. I just tip the chair, straight up, lift the weight, and repeat. Squat or sit fully to that chair. Stand up, lift the weight. Do break it down, not trying to merge all this into one really quick action. Okay, so my knees are staying in line with those toes. They're not caving in. I'm going to think about bringing those hips forward as I stand up tall, and then lifting the weight to about chest height. Elbows lifting as well. So it's really important I have that freedom in movement, that I allow my elbows to lift. Again, squat or sit, raise up. Simple changes, taking the weight out. Maybe you're getting enough just from the squat or sit to stand. Maybe this weighted action isn't needed. So make those changes if you want, or need to rather. Last couple of seconds. I'll get one last time. And raise. Back down. Moving into our calf, back and lower legs again. Just take a couple of seconds again. So again, I want to turn my chair here. You can perform this seated, and if you don't like this movement, regular foot placement with your toes ahead is absolutely fine. Again, the setup that I will lead with. I'm going to flare my toes slightly outwards, not too dramatic, just slightly outwards in a diagonal plane, in that my heels have narrowed or merged towards each other, very subtly, just a small little bit. Body straight, heels up. So again, I'm lifting right up onto the toes of my feet every time. Heels lifting up and right up onto the toes of our feet. Feeling the back of my lower legs. A little connection there. Keeping my hips from moving too much. The only way for me is up, returning back to the floor. Up, returning back to the floor. And just continuing on like that. Hopefully feeling a little bit of connection in the back of the lower legs there. Again, I'm going right up on those toes every time. So I'm not trying to say in a half movement, I want right up onto the toes. Really feeling back of the legs. Last couple of seconds here with this movement. And rest, okay? One final weighted movement. Front raise, again. You can perform this in a seated position. You can perform it from fully stationary, like so. And then we can perform it as I am, as a very active movement. How that looks. Arms straight, hands down. I'll step forward a right leg and raise. And then follow through with left. And return back. I mentioned the last time we could lead from a different side each time. That's if you like. But I just want to keep it as straightforward as I can with the instruction here. Just leading with my right leg, following through with the left. Lightly step forward, raise each weight one at a time. And right, and then left. Keeping my body straight. Just making sure again that back doesn't arch. If you're running out of steam, you might just take up that stationary position. Could even be a case of lifting one arm at a time like this from that non-moving position or stationary. Seated, exactly the same, raising the arms. Just without that step forward and back. Final reps. Give one more. And return. Okay, drop the weights. That is your 3 rounds of weighted movements finished. Really good work. A lot shown at us there. 3 rounds of weighted movements. We were using body weight and weights. We worked our legs, areas like our thighs, calf, back and lower legs. We worked our arms. We worked our shoulders there. So a lot of different things incorporated. And then within all of that, we had our aerobic work as well, where we're very much working the heart, the lungs, just keeping the body very active and moving. So what we must now do is just cool down. take a couple of minutes, just to signal to our body to rest and to move into a relaxed state. So I'm going to start with some upper body movements and then just lightly finish with some lower body movements. So my heart rate is now up and I just want to relax everything back to a resting state. So very lightly, first of all, what I'm going to do is just start off, hands together, turning your body to the right and then turning to the left. Just gradually easing off. So again, turning to the right, turning to the left. Again, feel free to always let me know if you're finding these sessions easy, hard, or maybe it's the right kind of challenge. Let me know if you need more adaptations with movements. Do let me know. But again, whatever level you pick, you can break it down. You might do one round of the circuit, you might do two, you might do all three. Break the session up into small parts if you want. Or if in that full workout, hopefully that is all okay. Keeping hands together. Up to my left shoulder and then up to the right shoulder, just lightly across. Okay, thanks very much, Mary. The hips, yeah, the hips are it really is, and that will come up, the hips with that action where we're against the wall. You'll feel that kind of burning action, and that's generally okay. Like, it's a sign your hips were working hard. Once there's no pain, but yeah, kind of good burn, a good challenge. You'll feel it as you perform it, but then afterwards, hopefully feeling good and strong as well. So really good work, and thanks again for the feedback there. Just relaxing everything down. Okay, what I want to do next, with my hands faced in front, I'm going to straighten those arms out directly in front and then pull all the way back, squeezing shoulder blades together. Lightly press out in front, pull back. Let's try that another couple of times. Press in front, pull back. Let's try it twice more. Press in front, pull back. And then once more, lightly press out in front, and then lightly pulling back. Okay? Bringing my two hands together behind my body. I keep a nice straight position as my hands are together, and I lightly pull back, stretching out those shoulders here. And then return back in. Keeping those hands together still, lightly pull back. Hold for a couple of seconds here. And return back in. And then once more, keeping my hands together, lightly pull back. Hold for a couple of seconds. And back in. Perfect. Okay. Gradually moving things down. What I want to do is hold on to my chair. Just bring that right knee up, hold for a second or two, and then over to your left side. So we're just slowing the movements down, relaxing everything back. Still a little bit of movement and flow in it, and that we haven't come to a full stop. We're just gradually easing everything off here. Hold this position. Might feel those hips after all the work we did. So I'm just going to hold the position. Okay. Now, if I turn into my chair, again, we might feel a little stretch around the hips here. I'll lightly tap my toes behind, so I think stretching back this leg, and then swap to the opposite side. So keep it going. Right foot, left foot, lightly stretch back through each side, lightly stretching behind. Tap your toes behind, lightly stretch the leg back. Just think stretching out, opening out from those hips. Just keeping the movements very light, straightforward at this point. Nothing too demanding of our body. Okay, and then from the opposite perspective where I was pointing the toes down, now I want to lightly dig the heels out. I just know the sun is maybe in the way a little bit there. Hopefully we can see that okay. Just think lightly, pushing heels to the floor, raising your toes or pointing them up. I know the sun is coming in at me from all kinds of angles here, but hopefully we can see that. Heel and pointing your toes up. Just continuing on. Okay, and just bringing it back in. Just taking a couple of steps to the right, a couple of steps to the left. Just lightly again, relaxing everything down. Okay, I'll finish off in a seated position, just in case you were doing that session or large parts of it in a seated position and you found some of maybe these cool down movements weren't ideal. I'll show you one or two seated stretches now just to finish off. Okay, so we'll return into a seated position. I'm going to show this from a side position just so you can see the movements. So I sit forward in my chair. I'll straighten my right leg out. I'm on my heel. Body is straight, and I will gently tilt forward, feeling a little stretch on the back of my leg. Hold for a couple of seconds. Return back in. I straighten my left leg, upper body straight, gently tilt forward. And again, this is a really slow movement. I do not want to drive forward dramatically here. It'll just feel uncomfortable. So very small with the movement. Return. Let's go once more. Right leg out. Gently lean forward. Very small range. Feeling a little stretch back of that leg. Hold for a couple of seconds. And then let's repeat on the opposite side. So again, left leg out on my heel. Gently lean forward and hold for a couple of seconds here. And return back in. Okay. We'll just finish off. Light upper body movement. Arms across chest. Pull back out nice and wide. Hold the position for a couple of seconds here. Return back in. Open out nice and wide. Hold. And return back in. And again, open out nice and wide. Big hold, stretching out my chest. Back in. And let's go twice more. Big open wide. Return back in. And once more. Open out nice and wide. Back in. Okay. Finally, just going to finish off just to ensure I feel fully relaxed. Big deep breath in through my nose. Slowly exhale out the mouth. And again. 3 to finish. In through nose, slowly out mouth. Once more. And rest. Okay, so that is our session for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. That's our collaboration of Siel, Bleu Ireland and the Irish Cancer Society, bringing you this Staying Well While Staying Home series. So as ever, any questions, issues, too hard, too easy, any feedback, do just let me know. And we will be back next Wednesday at the same time. So we'll see you then. Great work and enjoy the rest of your week. Well done, everyone. Brilliant work, Mary. Hopefully you enjoyed that.